Hello again, Brian King here. I want to address a misunderstanding about something that occurs quite often with people that have ADHD. This idea that their anger is somehow attached to impulsivity, thinking that, well, you're calm 1 second, then all of a sudden something minor happens and boom, you're angry, like 0 to 60. And in reality, that's not how it happens at all. And it's not even a matter of impulsivity. If anything, it's a matter of expectation. Let me kind of break it down for you here. People with ADHD, as I've mentioned in other videos, kind of have this underlying frustration or restlessness because they find themselves bumping up against the world more often than the average person. Because with our executive function challenges, it's much more difficult to do things in an organized, planned way. So we kind of bump through life in a haphazard, random kind of way. And because of that, we're used to making mistakes often, and we get really sick of it. So this frustration, this simmer, if you will, you ever try to boil water on the stove and you have this simmer, it's bubbling. It's not quite boiling yet, but it's got a bubble going on. It's moving. That's what this frustration kind of feels like. It's happening underneath the surface. And it's because of this relentless tripping over our own feet, and we get sick of it after a while. And our capacity to be resilient in the presence of our own mistakes, our own humanity, really drops, okay? So as we go through the day and we keep bumping up against these things and keep making mistakes, the heat on the water keeps turning up a little bit more at a time. And the water gets a little bit hotter and hotter and hotter. Then all of a sudden, we reach our threshold. Something happens and our mind goes, darn it, I am so sick of it. This day, all I've been doing is making mistakes, and then boom, the water goes to boil. See, it's not 0 to 60, it's simmer to boil. And it's been accumulating all day long. So this seeming quickness to anger is pretty much the straw that broke the camel's back. But here's the thing. Let's say we feel better after our blow up. And we say, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I'm just having a rough day. What happens? Okay, maybe that blow up didn't take the boil all the way down. Maybe it just took it down to simmer again. So we're at the edge of boil once more. So something else happens 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, an hour later, boom, we blow up again. It's because of this underlying frustration that we seem so quick to anger. So what's one thing that you can do about this? Well, one thing you can do about this, as I mentioned in other videos, is to approach it from a place of acceptance, of humility. Easier said than done. This is why my clients work with me to develop this capacity. One thing I do, because I'm clumsy, I trip over my own feet, I'm bumping into walls that have been there for 10 years. And one thing I've learned to say is, of course. I expect that because I'm clumsy, I'm going to bump into things. So instead of saying to myself, darn it, I did it again. What's wrong with me? When am I ever going to get this right? I say, of course I bumped into the wall. I'm clumsy. That's what happens. I expect this to happen. See? Expectations. I expect that this is going to occur. So of course it did. I don't say, of course, because I'm a loser, because I'm stupid. No, of course, because I'm clumsy. It makes sense. It's raining outside right now. The conditions exist. The combination of the hot and the cool air coming together and the humidity and so on and so forth. Of course it's going to rain. All the conditions are right for it. All the conditions are right for me to trip over my own feet. So of course I'm going to do it. You see how that works? Another thing you can do is to constantly anticipate that things can go one of two ways. They can go the way you want, or they can go different. For people with ADHD, they consistently go different. So you can have an intention. You want things to go perfect. You want things to go right. You want things to work for once. Well, they could go that way, but they could also go different. Right? So when they do go different, you can say, of course they went different. I fully expected this. I knew they could go one of two ways, the way I want, or they could go different. So when you anticipate it and you're correct, it's not as though the universe has jumped up and screwed you over again because you demanded things go the way you wanted. You demanded things go right. And when they don't, it's God giving you the middle finger, or the universe is against you, or whatever you tell yourself, because you and your ego declared that it was going to go right. Guess what? The world doesn't work that way for anybody. It goes the way you want, or it goes different. So you can use one of those two approaches. Either, of course it went that way, or of course it went different. And when it goes different, what do? You do it again and again and again. Now, keep this in mind. It is not your destiny to continue to trip over your own feet psychologically. There are strategies out there that can allow you to be effective more often than you are currently experiencing. I teach those strategies. But the way you're going to get them is you've got to reach out to me and let me know that you want them. You can't say, I have a hard time asking for help. Well, maybe you do, but that's also why you're in the circumstance you are now, because you're not asking for help. So love yourself enough to reach out, okay? Hopefully this has been helpful to you. If it's helpful to somebody else you know, or could be, please share it with them. They'll thank you for it. And until we talk again, this has been Brian. And remember, life is good.